Don't just read the Wikipedia.
Okay.
He's like, all right, give me a second.
I'll just guess. He's gonna just make stuff up now.
Kingdom Hearts 2.
Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
I'm Nolan.
And this is episode 413, and it is a producer poll!
Yay.
The question of the week is completely self-serving. What game has the best story?
Why you go first? Why is it self-serving?
It's self-serving because he wants to play some kind of new game that's awesome and that has the things he likes.
I cannot even begin to tell you how many times I've Google searched some iteration of what video game has the best story, best video game stories.
It's always
of all
the
time.
same 10 games.
Here's the problem. Yeah, here's the problem. I'm going to let you down because, my answer is not story-driven games. I get the most pleasure from building my own story experience. I want things that are, open and that you discover.
What do you think the question?
Do
you think the question was?
Best story.
Okay, so
Civ 6, Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, stuff that you get to figure it out on
Adventure?
your own.
So storyless games is your
Not
answer?
adventure. But
we joked before we recorded, fans at home, that he was going to have some ludicrous answer. That's crazier than we came up with the dumbest thing and he still beat it.
Ask me about great games that everyone tells you the story is so good and what the plot even is. I'm not going to remember. I don't care about that. That's not what
we know that
draws
about
me
you
to
now.
Gaming at all.
Again, not the question, but I appreciate
it is an unanswered to the question.
Someone else's question.
And
yes,
I will.
You're right.
You can answer that. Nolan, you passed it over to me to begin with, so I'll go second at least. The problem is we've talked about some of these games before because there are some that rise above the rest. Two that come to mind: BioShock, one of the best stories. The Last of Us. I'm just saying the compilation, phenomenal. And
still need to play the second one.
Though, really?
I do.
That's some of the best story there.
I know.
That surprises me.
I haven't played
Nolan,
that part yet.
That you weren't on that bandwagon.
Those are two. There are some some indie ones. I love the story behind A Brother, A Tale of Two Sons. It's a much smaller story. It's compact and told over the course of just a few hours. They're remaking that game, by the way.
I know. I feel like it doesn't.
It doesn't.
I'm gonna try and play it again by myself.
You can.
Two hands, one.
Can you?
2 hands, one keyboard.
Nolan.
Don't Google that.
Nolan.
What's my answer to the question, which game has the best story, is Metal Gear Solid 1. I still think I replayed it last year, and I still think it's so.
You like ludicrous and over the top?
Oh yes, definitely. In most media, I mean, I'm a Twin Peaks fan, so yes. And Kojima, just the start of it all, and the characters and the voice acting in that game, it all does it for me, and I just think it holds up. It's so good.
You really need to play Alan Wake. I think you and your wife would love it based on the kind of weirdness that you like in your stories.
I don't want to play the first one though.
So just go read a recap of the story so far. Watch a YouTube video and then play the second.
No, that's fair, Dustin. I might do that.
I guess, but
it's called a compromise.
Would you rather me play the first one and put it down forever?
No.
Okay.
That's what you did with Red Dead.
1, not 2.
Yeah, my point.
Exactly. That is the situation.
That's the exact scenario. I will allow you to watch a recap of the first if you play the second, but man, these kinds of video games with beautiful storytelling really have to be experienced from start to finish to receive the heart. The key to your heart is in the heart of the story.
You're trying too hard.
All right. You're nobody.
Just say it.
Keep going.
All right, I'm sorry.
Ooh,
I'm Sora.
Saved it.
Okay, don't do that.
Don't do that either.
Like in our retro game of the week, Kingdom Hearts 2.
Overview.
Kingdom Hearts 2 is a mid-2000s game that comes from Square Enix and Disney having a little
Love
game
affair.
development baby together. And spoiler alert if you don't know how that works. And it's a PlayStation 2 title that is, like you would guess, since the game is Kingdom Hearts 2, the third Kingdom Hearts game, which makes so much sense.
No, it does.
And is...
You guys don't know about Chain of Memories.
What'd you say?
We got our Kingdom Hearts apologist already in the chat.
Okay, it's the third Kingdom Hearts game because Chain
Yes.
of Memories is a side game on the GBA that bridges the story between the two and pretty much set the tone for how they would do storytelling because there's a billion side games in this crazy
Yeah, the great thing
series.
is there's another game that chronologically takes place before this one as well. Like in between 1 and 2. So
yes.
In between 1 and 2.
We won't go into
released...
all of that, but this is the third Kingdom Hearts game.
They released that one much later, though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that one was later.
After this one was even re-released.
Yes.
So it's actually like the fourth, but then it depends on how you do the time. Tracking the story here is a little bit confusing, and I'm not talking about the sequence of games anymore. I'm jumping straight into the story itself because these, like Kingdom Hearts 1, if you listen to that episode, if you're familiar at all, is a big world full of characters from the Final Fantasy universe and the Disney universe, and a whole lot goes on. In this game, you are playing as Roxas, or at least you think you are, for like, I don't know, ages and ages and ages. Then you find out you're actually just continuing the story of Sora and his good pals from the first one, Goofy and Donald, as they go on all of the various adventures that happen in this crazy world.
Can we say they traipse around the Disney worlds?
Absolutely. They traipse.
They bees
like
in the
crazy.
traipse?
This is a game all about traipsing, more than most.
They traipsing. Yep.
Let me just say that you mentioned Kingdom Hearts. The very first game we actually played on the podcast for episode 384. It feels recent. It is, but it was 6 months ago at this point in time.
Yeah, well,
you made it sound like it was the first game we ever played on the podcast.
No, we
What
didn't.
you were saying was the first game of the Kingdom Hearts series we played on the podcast
6 months ago. And I can't believe we're getting this one so close. 6 months is close because it should be kind of fresh on our minds, and that's important because having a long gap between the two would not make this following the story any easier.
True, but I will say that Kingdom Hearts 1 was fairly straightforward without knowing what they all changed in the story at a later point. But like, because even with that one, if you knew Disney and you knew Final Fantasy, you only were introduced to basically like 3 or 4 new characters.
Sure.
This is completely different. Almost every character you come across, that's not true, but there are dozens and dozens of new characters to try to learn, and most of them are wearing the same clothes, and so you'll never know who it is
dozens,
in the first place.
There's 13s too.
There's
13.
lots of new
Baker's
characters. Lots of sort of deeper references to some of like characters in that aren't sort of as known. There's a lot going on here.
This game was a producer pool submission by our producer, Joey. And so this was not an accident. It was not a random selection. This was a game hand-crafted, hand-selected by Joey himself.
Also, Sanctuary is better than Simple
thanks.
and Clean Don't At Me.
Gameplay.
Kenny mentioned playing as Roxas, and that is true. When you first open the game, fans of Kingdom Hearts 1 and fans of Chain of Memories, probably including myself, probably went, huh? Who's this clown? kind of looks like Sora, kind of not, and he's not called Sora, he's somebody else. And that is the intro section to Kingdom Hearts 2. You're playing as Roxas. Now, think back to the first game, because especially Dustin, because he pointed out on that last playthrough that the tutorial island, Destiny Island in Kingdom Hearts 1 is far too long. And when he pointed that out to me, it's so true. Going back to that game, I was like, yeah, just get me to the core of the game. I want to know, was the Roxas plot line and Twilight Town, all of that, was that better for you?
It was longer, I think.
Yeah.
It was certainly longer. It will take you around, if you're rushing it, you might be able to get it done in 3 hours, but I think more so if you're watching the cutscenes and you're exploring the town and you're doing the mini games, it's going to take you 5 to 6 hours.
But that's not 5 to 6 hours of straight tutorial, in my opinion, at all.
No, not at all. It's story development. It's prologue. It's
truly a prologue.
It's the story before the story, but it's its own thing. They're trying to get you emotionally attached to these characters. They're trying to build relationships. They're trying to do all this stuff to then utilize that later in the game, but it does take a long time.
My answer is that it is the same thing they were going for with Tutorial Island and Kingdom Hearts 1, but done much better. And I think one thing that I'll probably bring up a number of times throughout this conversation is I think at least one thing that Kingdom Hearts 2 does so much better than Kingdom Hearts 1 is the pacing. I think pacing is king here, and it is done very well so that most of the times you're not bored or doing the same thing monotonously over and over again. You have purpose, reason, and even if it's confusing, it's building blocks on this elaborate story.
I will agree with pacing, and they do a fairly good job breaking that up. I will say, just so that people know, it is building this world and this story. A decent chunk of that, not all of it, I won't even say too much, but a decent chunk of that is watching cutscenes. This is fairly cutscene heavy. And
heavy
I think
story
really
game.
Throughout the whole story, it's almost like play a little, hope you brought a snack because you got to set down your controller, watch part of the story. And so maybe more than any other game we've ever played.
Maybe.
And we've done some cutscene heavy games, but this one has a whole bunch of now watch as things move on, which works for some people.
And I wanted to just see where y'all landed on that, because just to take you back, I played the game when it came out when I was younger. And what I love about that intro, playing as Roxas, which by the way is more or less the same setup as playing as Sora from the first game, so it should feel familiar to the player. Still the menu-based combat, still, fighting is roughly the same. It's like hack and slash fluid. It's like fluid hack and slash kind of gameplay. But with the story component is what really grips me there in that intro bit, because they do want you to care about these characters, and by the end of the 4-ish hours, you do. And then it's kind of gut-wrenching to lose them. And the famous line that everyone loves is, I guess my summer vacation is over. And then it's done. You're like, that just killed me. I just played the entire game. And then you get to then you go on. And so I can't name a ton of games that have a really thought-out, solid prologue, like a book would, or like a movie would, like this game does. And I think it's just a cool way to teach the player, but also get them connected to the story again. It's just great.
It is great. It depends a little bit on the assumption that you've played the previous two games. If it doesn't, you're going to feel a little lost at times. It teaches you, and it tries to do lots of flashbacks and sort of both teach you what's going on, because it's sort of weird and out there, but that's how these stories work. But then to really follow, I think you will be much better served if you've played the first one and Chain of Memories to have a sense of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
I found myself being confused more than I would have preferred.
You will, but that will not erase all confusion. There's intentional confusion in the way that this story is being told. And so even hardcore fans of the series, when this released, that had played both of those games, are confused. After the 6 hours of playing the beginning, they're like, what? Because
I was like, what's a nobody? What? Hold on. What is a nobody? Who
there's
is a
so
nobody?
much. One of the key things here is that in the first game, your main antagonists are the Disney villains and the Heartless that take on various forms of creatures that you fight throughout the entire game. In this, there is still that faction, right? There's still the Disney villains and the Heartless, but there's a new faction that comes into play, and that is Organization XIII and the Nobodies. And Organization XIII was originally comprised of 13 individuals, and some of them, by this game, you know their names, some you don't, and all of that. But they're fractured, they're splintered at this point. And the Nobodies, a new form of creature, similar to the Heartless, but kind of reversed in some ways. They were powerful. There were bodies, people. They used to be people with powerful like souls, and so when their hearts left them to become heartless or whatever, it's the husks that remain, the heartless husks that then walk around like idiots. I would not be terrified of them walking towards me.
They're kind of.
You wouldn't?
I mean, in real life, maybe.
Those things are straight up
Those
creepy.
things are goofy.
I would literally. No, Goofy's a character.
You're right.
I would literally lose my mind if I walked up to a creature who unzipped their own face and opened up their mouth and then swirly yogaed around me and couldn't be
figuratively.
Hit. Like, that's totally creepy.
You'd figuratively lose your mind.
No, I would actually mentally break, and you'd never have me again.
So the cloaked figures of Organization 13 are the more powerful. They're like people, right? And then the ones you fight that look like what Dustin was talking about are like the NPCs. Like, they weren't nobody special when they got turned into a Heartless.
They weren't nobody special. And however, even though there are new enemy factions and the story is so much more intense than it was presented in Kingdom Hearts, the gameplay is basically the same. You end up, after that whole beginning section, traveling Disney World to Disney World and playing a relatively small segment there, typically with a protagonist or character from that Disney world that joins your team temporarily, while you, in this game, which I think was different than the first one, you're actually kind of taking part in a piece of the story from the actual movie that's taking place.
Yeah, for the most part, there are maybe a couple of exceptions, but they tried to like take you into the familiar plot line from the movies that you recognize. Especially with the Pirates of the Caribbean was like a new really big deal for this one because of the live action movies that were the Johnny Depp ones that were coming out at the time. And that one is a good example of following along with the plot.
But you're going from world to world and you're defeating the Heartless there, and Nobodies, if they're there almost in every world, a member from the organization shows up and taunts you. And but then you using the Keyblade, which that's another thing that should have made fans be like, what, at the beginning of this game? Because my understanding is there's, up until this point, there's only one Keyblade. And that, like, one Keyblade of that degree at least, and Sora had it, and now a different guy has it at the beginning of the game, so that should be like, wait, what in the world's going on? And and so that should throw you for a loop. But as Sora, you're going around with, I guess we've just alluded to it, but Donald Duck and Goofy.
Goof Troop.
Which I'm sure that I said this last time. That's absurd. And it works.
But it
works.
Does kind of
works.
Work. I don't
good.
want it to.
I don't either.
I still don't like the idea of it, but they somehow kind of pull it off, and I'm not okay.
You know why it shouldn't work? because it sounds like it was their first idea. When they were like, okay, we're merging these two things. Who's going to be the team members? Our Square Enix guy, Donald Duck and Goofy. That was their like first idea, which shouldn't have worked, but it's charming and funny. But they have heroic moments too. Like it's great.
I think the glue that holds it all together and that makes it work is Sora, this new creature that was perfectly designed, by the way, that has this Disney flair, big feet, right? And some of those things, but then has the Final Fantasy flair with the hair and the cool look, new threads in this game, by the way. So he's more grown up, still voiced by Haley Joel Osment. And but Haley's grown up, so his voice is a little bit deeper. And so you've got a slightly more mature Sora, but the friendship between him and Donald and Goofy, and the way that they work together in combat, in story, it just works. I don't like it either, Kenny, but I've got to admit that it works. It works.
It does work. You mentioned the combat. I really let's just talk about that just briefly. So the important thing to note here is I mentioned hack and slash, and it is, but in the first game and in this game, it's a menu-based system where in the bottom left corner, much like maybe a JRPG kind of HUD, you have this list of things, attack, magic, items, and in battle you cycle through those with the D-pad, and if you're on attack, okay, then you're in hack and slash mode and you're kind of mashing, but then your magic is also incorporated in a list that way, and it's so different, especially for that time. And I can't name a ton of games that do something similar. This is such a unique feature to this game. And to this day, I love it. I think it works so well.
The combo of menuing with something that's more real time, where you're, actually running around and swinging and more actiony style of RPG is definitely an interesting combination. They do add a couple of reaction buttons to the fight,
real time
in here in the second one, where you're timing responses to things that the enemy does, both in like normal combat and plays some really big moments in a lot of the boss fights as well. Almost feels kind of like quick time eventy, and it kind of works for me. I didn't know that I was going to like it, and then I was like, okay, this is a little different, but sort of fun.
It's a huge system.
How do y'all feel about QTEs in general?
Good question.
I don't like them.
We've talked about it before.
Right.
Kenny, you don't like them. I don't like them either. I think they're stupid. I like them in the sense that I cannot press the thing and see what happens when I don't press it, and it's just funny.
Okay, so my memory served me correctly. I thought both of you do not like them, generally speaking.
And you
I do.
Yes.
If it gives me more pizzazz and splash to watch cool things happen, I'm typically for it. I think they can be overused, but I tend to like QTEs. Okay. If y'all both don't tend to like QTEs, but that is exactly what reaction commands are, why does it work for you here?
I'll tell you why. Because in combat here, so there's the boss fight QTEs, hitting triangle in this case, and there's the like normal battle events. You're also hitting triangle, but I'm just saying, in normal battles, enemies have different types. There's different types of Heartless, there's different types of Nobodies, and they will have weak points, so to speak, where you need to position yourself in such a way to get that QTE to appear so you can hit it. Like it's a guard, or like if you get behind the big bulbous dudes, like you can knock them down and you won't bounce back. So I just like the sense that there's some strategy to positioning in combat versus it's basically a cutscene that I can press a button every once in a while in.
I'm actually with Nolan. I liked it more as a combat mechanic, as another way of interacting with the sort of normal fights. It didn't bother me in the sort of bossy fights, but they felt more quick-timey in those cases. And there I didn't like hate it. Their implementation here is well done, but it didn't like appeal to me as much. I mostly like the way they integrated it into combat.
And I understand that they're called the same thing here, but they do function very differently. When you're fighting the mooks, it's context sensitive. When you are fighting bosses, it's really just a QTE. So like every once in a while,
they lean into it with the bosses too, especially at the end of the game. I know y'all probably didn't get there. They really lean into.
Of course, we didn't get there.
The boss QTEs.
So, for example, I was fighting the Hydra in the Colosseum, and during certain segments of that fight, you can press triangle, and Pegasus, is that the horse's name, rides in, and you're able to ride the Pegasus around and hit triangle as you pass certain heads to do certain strikes.
Yeah.
But if the battle lasts long enough, you can do that every couple of minutes, and so it really is very much QTE, and so there is a distinction there. They're both reaction commands. I get not liking one and preferring the other. I like both, and
the other thing. Go ahead.
I think that added a good another layer to the battle system here, so it wasn't just X X X X X X X X X.
Yeah, and that's why I think Kingdom Hearts 2 combat is better than Kingdom Hearts 1, or why I prefer it, because it adds that extra little bit. And the other reason to me why it doesn't feel so QTE, like traditional QTE to me, is that it doesn't like go, well, in boss fights sometimes it does this, but most of the time it doesn't, where like when you hit it, it doesn't go into like this mini cutscene of you doing something ridiculous. It just kind of does it like real time right there. And so it feels less intrusive to me. I don't know. I think it's good.
There are some elements of this though that are similar to or feel, for good or bad, kind of the same as the way combat works in the first one for people who maybe played that one and not the other. Your enemies are still dropping things as they get destroyed. Your money, your health, experience, which is a lot of health, honestly. And so I think maybe a little bit too much.
Should have played critical mode like me.
No, it's not. I mean, it maybe is. It's not like super easy, but it is not especially challenging. I
agree.
Feel like
that's why I play critical mode.
We don't. We don't have critical mode.
That's an option.
In the final mix, you can.
Oh, final mix has it.
Oh no, I think the original game has. I think you have to unlock it.
I don't know. Sure critical mode.
100%.
Okay.
But maybe I'm wrong, but it's definitely in final mix.
Well, then not 100%.
I have distinct recollection of
100% of the time
of playing it on PS2 hard mode, which is called critical mode. I have a recollection.
No, those are different. Those are different.
I mean critical mode, the unlocked one.
All right, whatever you say. Aye, Captain. He's looking it up. I think another element that made the battle a little bit more fun, and we probably only got to dip our toes into it a little bit, are the drive forms. That's new to Kingdom Hearts in this game. And drive forms are basically, I'm going to call it a limit break, but it's where Sora wields
kind of
dual keyblades, and like one of either, I don't think Donald and Goofy become that other keyblade, but they definitely like give up their power to imbue power,
like enable
that. And then you're able to do extra crazy moves for a limited amount of time as your limit bar goes down.
And you get new clothes.
Oh yeah, and you change threads based on. They
tied it, yeah.
Which one you did? Yeah.
They tied it to those the fairy godmothers in Cinderella, and
that's
like those
so great.
Yeah, those are the different drive mode threads or whatever. I think I loved that addition. I remember like playing it as a kid and being like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like the drive mode thing was sick because you go Super Saiyan, like straight up. You just start going crazy, and it feels really good. Especially late game, because like you can invest in that mode, and so you can make it like really strong by the end. But drive mode was sick. And let me just say that critical mode is not available in the original PS2 one. I was wrong, but I have it on the final mix and on PS4, which is where I played it.
I would never, and Kenny would never either. That's not for us.
No, it's good. It makes the game so interesting.
One of the things that we didn't discuss on our Kingdom Hearts episode, and I could see us not discussing here, and it's not our fault, it's the fault of the creators that puts the first summon at least 10 hours into the game. I think that's ridiculous. Yeah. And the first one it gives you here in this game is Chicken Little. So I'm not going to put it on us.
I'm actually hyped to use Chicken Little as a summon.
But
so don't.
I honestly forgot that was in the game. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. So we did not discuss summons, if I recall correctly, in Kingdom Hearts 1 because it takes so long to even get a summon. And in this one, it takes a long time too. But the first one is Chicken Little. You're able to get other summons as well. Do you recall some of the summons? I think you get Stitch in this game.
You do get Stitch.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Which is nice. And there's some more serious ones
the genie,
too, though.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think you still have Cloud's what is his move called? You should know, Dustin. The Omni Slash or something like that.
As a summon?
Yeah.
Okay.
The summons, I think they're so great, especially when you consider the ties into Disney, because it does like a little like thing when you pull out Chicken Little, and it's stupid, but it's like it fits perfectly within what they're going for in this game, because summons is such it's a Final Fantasy concept, and it's always epic and serious and like edgy, and then Chicken Little, whatever, or Stitch coming out and just wreaking havoc. I love that. I think it makes
Stitch
so much
would
sense.
though. I think that one works on both levels.
I like that they not introduced it, because they did that and they've done it throughout this whole series. I like that they included it because it's very Final Fantasy, as you just said, Nolan. I think it could have been implemented better or earlier, or it's just, you want summon. Like in Final Fantasy, you get a lot of summons typically, depends on which game you play, because there's a lot of summons, and so you can get them up over time. I think in this, they really limit the amount of summons, which is fine, but I think spreading it out a little bit more evenly and giving you access to them earlier would make you use them or remember them more than you do in this game.
I agree, but I forgive them because they're not like so integral to the combat.
They're not.
Like it's not gonna.
But I know, but I wish they were.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Let's talk about some more differences, because y'all are gonna have to remind me. I don't remember well from the first one, but I believe you have more equipment options here than you have in the first one. Changing,
accessory.
You can. Accessories and your armor, and
I feel like you had that.
I don't remember if the first one has that. Maybe it does. I literally just don't recall. It's been 6 months. Regardless, I felt like they did a good job sort of skirting that line between typical RPG and more in-depth kind of RPG, and making this still understandable and accessible, but having a little bit of those elements of finding items and equipping them and whatever else, but without getting too into the weeds here, because it really is more active and more about the action and the story than it is about like being a typical RPG, at least.
Yeah, they don't give you too much to worry about in terms of like stats and stuff. The real thing that you're gonna care about and want to do is changing your Keyblade out. As you complete worlds, you unlock new Keyblades and designs, but also have like different abilities tied to them or whatever. That's really the focus here, and I think that was a smart move. Like, you don't need to have like a vest and pants and all that.
Right. You're going to be learning other abilities just as you level up as well, and you are making some choices about which one of those you kind of have active, which is always nice and welcome. And like the first one, although handled a little bit differently, you're also defining the AI for how your buddies work.
You're not.
At least in theory.
Freaking Donald never listens to me, which that's his personality. But dude, I can put as much as I want, use conservatively, and at the end of every battle, he'll be out of mana, dude. Every battle, he uses all his mana.
That is him being conservative.
He's trying to help his friend.
Dude is. We go into the smallest Heartless fight, and he's putting off a nuke after nuke after nuke.
Here's a heal. You're full health.
You get a fire. You get a fire. You get a fire. I like that it's there. It never worked for me.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter because they do give you tons of drops, as you were saying, Kenny. You said about health, but it gives you MP drops and everything else. I will also say, however, that the thing that makes it a learnable system and lightweight is that there's no permanency. You can turn on or turn off abilities outside of combat at any time. So as long as you have the AP for it, you're able to set up whatever kind of gambit you want moving into any kind of battle. And I love that. It takes the pressure off of.
Yeah, it's flexible. Yeah,
very much
you're not expending skill points. It's very just fluid and light and easy.
A difference here, I don't think this is in the first game. I'm almost certain it's not. There's somewhat of a crafting system in this game that I remember loving because it adds the synthesis.
It's fun because we just did Final Fantasy IX and that's was big there.
Right. And probably where they got that idea. But in this game you are fighting and yes, you're getting experience or money, health drops, and you're also getting these balls that you pick up that are items, and some of them are synthesis materials that you can use to upgrade keyblades, which that to me added this grind to the game that I love. I like it when you can have a good chase item you're going for. That's like the Diablo and the Path of Exile in me loving that. And so I really like this because it's simple. It's just collect whatever, 5 energy crystals and the other crystals or whatever, and if you have those 2 you can upgrade. I think it's great.
I like the concept of it. I think it's another thing they set up for mid to late game, and playing 12 hours you're not going to really even scratch the surface of that system. So I like the promise of it, but haven't got to explore it fully. Another thing that is very different in this game than the first, one of my biggest frustrations the first time I played through Kingdom Hearts, has now been remedied with the gummy ship battle system here. It's still mandatory, which at first I thought it was not. I thought you could maybe just go around those doors and you could go to the planet, but no, you've got to go through these.
Still got to go
through these. But it's so much easier, so much streamlined. You don't have to do it every time you travel. After you do it and unlock a world, you can freely travel to that. You can go back and do it, and there are certain challenges. In fact, there are reasons to go back now for more items and challenges. Yeah. They fixed the gummy ship problem.
I'm glad it landed for you. I would be surprised if it didn't. They fixed it, and it's not only a better vehicle to get you from world to world, but it can be a full-on in-game system that you interact with, and I did, in fact, interact with it because customizing the ship is better. It's just straight up more fun, and you inevitably will figure out that you just build a wall of guns, and that's it. You don't try to make it cool or anything.
Can I tell you another tip that I heard this week? This might blow your mind, and some of you, if you're listening right now, I didn't get to explore it, but fans of this game know to create donut ships. And what that means is you just have a ship with a hole in the middle because most enemies are trained to shoot at the center of your ship. And if you don't have a ship piece there, it goes right through you and doesn't hurt you.
Yep.
That's how I like to game the system, baby.
That's so great.
But some of those challenges are really hard and fun to try to beat. And I think they fixed it. It just goes to show that they really did pay attention to people's feedback from the first game and try to make it better. And I think in every way,
it's super not
calling it a problem in the first game is completely fair. And so you did, and
it's super nice and invasive because you have to do them, but if you want to, you can only do each of them once as you unlock the door, and then you don't have to do it again. So it's there if you want to dive in deeper, but it's not a hindrance if you don't. And that's what I really like about mini games, don't force it on the player. Let it be an option.
Yep.
The final difference that I do want to just slip in here that I noticed this time for the first time, and it's not an issue at all, it's just something, it's interesting. Playing the first game 6 months ago, I was platforming so much more than I remembered, and then in this game, you're not. outside of battle, you're in these different Disney worlds and you're going through the stories. It's quite flat, linear in this game compared to the first game. That's fine. Like I don't have a problem with either one. I just remember in the Alice in Wonderland world, I was like platforming like crazy, and I was like, this is fun, but like I don't remember that being a component. This game kind of took that out.
Yeah, I don't remember Mulan's movie and area is your first Disney world that you go to. I don't think there's any platforming. I think everything is flat there. There's really only like 3 regions there, and you're doing various fights as you explore.
And you can jump. You have a jump.
Yeah, that's definitely not a focus here. It's more again. This is an action action adventure game that is it's story centric. Like even again more than the first one. I still think it's fairly thin on why you're going to all these Disney worlds, but because really a lot of the like evolution of story happens in between these worlds, and as you go back to your like hometown, which is fun because it's Hollow Bastion, which was the end game of the first game. So now your Final Fantasy characters are camped out there. But by the way, Aaron from Final Fantasy X joins your party in Hades. Spoiler alert. Is that the first Final Fantasy character that joins your party temporarily?
I think so. I want to say that Final Fantasy VIII dude, what's his name?
Leon? I don't know what they call him here.
I want to say he does at some point too, but I don't remember. But yeah, I forgot about that too, and I knew that you would like that. Yeah,
I love how hyped you just got.
That
reality.
I was not expecting that, and I love that they added. I mean, Vivi is in the town to begin with, or Vivi.
I got super pumped to see Vivi.
But Aaron is like his character here. Like it's almost like he's on a side quest from Final Fantasy X somewhere. Like after he jumps into. Spoiler, never mind.
Last question: was there any particular world that stood out to you, Disney world that you enjoyed more than the others?
It's hard for me to pick, honestly. Nightmare Before Christmas world is a classic. It's freaking amazing. It's perfect tonally. It's a lot of fun. The characters are exactly like it's great. I will not, honorable mentions would be the Pirates of the Caribbean one, just because it was so fresh and new. It almost felt like, is this legal? When I played the game, like when it came out, I was like, dude, I watched this movie last week. Like,
right? Yeah, who owns these rights, and why is it the people making this weird mashup game that they're allowed to?
Yeah.
I didn't get far enough into depth there to even really have an opinion. I was proud of the fact that I got through that prologue and a little bit deeper, but I've got a lot of those worlds to still explore, so I don't have a strong opinion there. Though everything Nolan said just got me hyped to just dive in. So
the Steamboat Willie world, they did a black and white like cartoony.
That's great,
dude.
That's great.
It was so different.
Which now anyone can put into their game. If
nice. He's up to date. He knows his
he's
stuff.
Up to date, but also I'm gonna go ahead and say the Cuphead creators loved that world and played this game, and they used that as inspiration.
You think this was inspiration?
Yeah,
for Cuphead?
For sure.
Could have been.
You heard it.
It was
here
that one's so cool, dude. I forgot about that one.
Aged.
I know what I want to talk about first, but we normally don't get there until a little bit further, and I want to know if I'm allowed to jump the gun a little here.
Yes, you can do whatever you want. You're Kenny.
That's
Remember,
true.
we're the bosses.
I do whatever I want, and we are the boss. We are this podcast. We do whatever we want. Let's talk about voice.
Oh no, never mind. No, I'm just kidding.
What about it?
Because most of it is not
so well
the
done.
people from the movies.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
And so you've got people that are trying to do the voices as close as possible.
Right.
And some of the voices from the movies are iconic actors and voice actors.
Genie.
Yes.
And so I agree with you that largely here it is a thumbs up, but I do think that it is hit or miss.
Okay, well, you can hit me with freaking with freaking Christopher Lee voicing a character all day, all night, every day, and I'm just gonna be happy. they went for the big actors. They tried to get big talent. I know, obviously, when you have the cast that's wide of like all your, old like retrospective characters, you're not logistically going to be able to get all the same people. But like, they kept Haley Joel Osment. They had other big names. Hayden Panna, nobody can pronounce her last name.
Panties.
For Kyrie, right?
Her. Yep, for Kyrie. Like Christopher Lee voicing Diz. They tried to make it big and quality, and I really appreciate that.
It's funny because we played The Third Age, and Ian McKellen did do voice for that, but with this one, it's like they can't just go get like Johnny Depp and be like, hey, for this little kid's Disney Square Enix game with some fun, can you do that voice for all these stupid lines where you're talking to Donald Duck? He'd be like, no. Like, they'd offer him millions, he'd be like, no.
I heard some lore here that for Christopher Lee's voice acting, he was very busy, I guess, doing films at the time, and so he said, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do one take for all my lines, and that's what we've got to work with. Okay. And all of the fans since have said that's all it was needed, because he nailed every single take of his.
It doesn't sound like it was a one take kind of situation, because he was a pro.
I will say though, Disney is such a beloved product, and these movies and these characters are so known to many fans, and their voices are synonymous with these characters. And so if you're a big fan of the movie and you come to the game, you might notice some differences, and some of them will bother you. I think some of them bother me, not too much, and some of them are right on. Like, I have to look up, is this the person?
Right. And in some cases they did get the actual
person.
But in a lot of them they didn't, and it's not going to be quite there. But not for lack of trying. They definitely shot for the fences on it being quality, well recorded. Like, the actual voice work was something they put a lot of time into.
They weren't going to let it be bad. That's kind of my takeaway on it, because it's Disney, but it's Square Enix, and like, they know how big of a deal this is. They weren't gonna release this game and everyone be like, oh, the voice acting was so wrong, But yeah, you might notice some differences. On that same topic though of sound, I guess, the soundtrack of this game. Is it?
It's Yoko Shimomura.
Yeah. The soundtrack of this game is fantastic, in my opinion. And I said earlier that I think Sanctuary is better than Simple and Clean, which is the theme song for at the beginning, which both games have quite a lengthy opening cinematic, which is so good.
Very lengthy,
but so good. It's basically a music video for the song. But I think the worlds too that have their individual tracks are spot on and immersive, just like the first game, but better. It's just, again, they nailed the music.
Anytime we play a game that was composed by Yoko Shimomura, we call it out as excellent. Live a Live, Super Mario RPG, Parasite Eve, Legend of Mana, even Final Fantasy
Legend
15.
of Mana recently.
She did she helped put together, or was a part of
Chain of Memories.
I mean, she's phenomenal, and anything that she touches is excellent. So yeah, the soundtrack here is remarkable. There's no duds.
No, and you still have Dearly Beloved, which is the menu music. So it's like the Final Fantasy menu music. It's in all the games, and it's just always so good. Slightly different. That's this game's.
There are moments where it's a little over the top and a little too JRPG for me, with some of the sounds in the tracks. They're great tracks. I'm not trying to take away. Everything you guys said is true. This music is top notch. But there's moments that I'm like, oh, they did that. Oh, they included that weird vocal thing that just, I'm like, okay. But great overall.
I think graphically it's some of the best that the PS2 is going to see. They go with a cartoony vibe for most things. I mean, for for Pirates of the Caribbean and Jack, is his name Jack?
Sparrow,
thank you. They go more human realistic, which I think is before Final Fantasy XII did their PS2 realism. And so this was some of the early work on that, and was probably the best real people dimensions of the time. I think if I have my years correct. But it just looks good. And then with the amount of cutscenes that you have, I think, which by the way, we mentioned it super early in this episode, but I actually looked it up. Kingdom Hearts, the first game, has a lot of cutscenes, but it's only 4 hours and 37 minutes of cutscenes. Kingdom Hearts 2, 13 hours and 9 minutes of cutscenes in this game.
When it came out, I was like, dude, like when I beat the game, I was like, this is the beefiest single disc PlayStation game I've ever played in my entire life. How did that it is long.
This thick. They just have it very thick so it can read through.
the disc
is
that
thick. Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that.
Funny.
But they're good. Like I love cutscenes, and I like a lot of cutscenes. I will say, like, within the first 2 hours of playing the game, an hour of that is cutscenes. Sure. That's a lot. But I think the cutscenes are good. Like, they are good. Yes. They're very good.
And the other thing I'll say graphically, or about the game's graphics, I've always loved the Kingdom Hearts art style, especially 2's.
It's good.
Because it's not like any other game. It has it's doing the like anime thing and the cartoony thing, like you're saying, but it's uniquely its own. And the environment and the objects in the environment are a Kingdom Hearts look.
Yeah, even the enemies and the feel of them, the vibe of your sort of main enemies feels different than the Heartless, but their animations, like moving all around, and the way they swirl and move and like flex, and like it's really well done.
One of the things graphically, and this is probably could have been a part of the gameplay conversation, but I want to make sure to make note of it because I love it here. I don't think it happened in Kingdom Hearts, but I absolutely loved the graphic changes to the menu, the battle menu. With each world that you go to.
Like the Steamboat Willie one you're talking about.
Each of them have some kind of unique design to that little box that is amazing. When you're in, I forget if Traverse Town is this one. No, Traverse Town is Kingdom Hearts 1. This one,
Twilight Town.
Yes. Twilight Town.
This is Twilight Town.
It's got the little train going.
It's got the little train going through. Like
immersive, dude. Charming.
And each one changes. It's just so nice. Yeah. Immersive.
Beast's Castle has like vines. Like it's so good.
Detail.
It's so good. Details. Yes.
Nolan mentioned, but Final Mix was a re-release of this game. At first released exclusively in Japan in 2007, which is crazy to me.
Rude.
But we got 2.5.
And then with the 2.5 remix, right?
That's what I currently own.
It was released worldwide with the HD remix, then remastered and released. It added new and additional content, new fights, new weapons.
Yeah. It added the Cavern of Remembrance, which is like a new thing. It's the way to play the game if you want to play it, in my opinion.
If you do want a copy of the original disc, remember it's this big, you don't need to get rich because it's only $10 used or loose, and it's $50 new.
Seriously?
Nolan looks surprised. They just made a bunch of them. Yeah, they're just not hard to
find.
And everybody bought them. Like, it was a very
I've got the strategy guide, and it's the thick one too. So,
final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. I'll begin by saying we unanimously gave Kingdom Hearts our vote for New Game Plus status, but Kenny and I had some reservations. I think Kenny even more so than me. Nolan's hardcore Kingdom Hearts through and through.
No reservations.
Kingdom Hearts 2 is one of those examples where the sequel does it better. And not just does it better, but where it seems like the developers really listened to the fans of the original and said, we got what you didn't like. Let's either take it away or tweak it. We got what you liked. Let's let's bump that up even more. And then let's go deep into the story. Now, I know that many people have their arguments to where the story goes and how wonky it gets and the retconning and all of that. Hey, I'm from the world of Final Fantasy with deep, crazy stories in the first place. I like the depth and the focus of story here. Is it absurd? Is it hard to follow? Are you confused the majority of the time? Yes, yes, and yes. But I still had fun with it. I love the extra focus, laser focus on story in this game, even more so than the original. And that excited me. I still love the friendship of Donald and Goofy and Sora. I love the changes to the battle system. Yeah, I think this one does what Kingdom Hearts did, but so much better. I would skip that game and play this game instead if you had to choose. But yeah, this is definitely a thumbs up from me. Kingdom Hearts 2 New Game Plus for me.
Yeah, I mostly agree with what Dustin has said. Better than the first one, for sure. Lots of good improvements. Overall, a really good quality game. I do disagree about some of the story stuff. You don't need 13 hours of cutscenes. You just don't. Like that's that's longer than like sitting down and binging a whole season of something on Netflix. Like 13 hours is a lot of time to spend just watching this story unfold. Let us experience it. Make a little bit more of that gameplay. Additionally, I know you're like, the story's bonkers, but that's okay. The story's bonkers and they barely get away with it. It's a lot. You're going to be confused. You're going to be like, huh? If they had toned that down, tightened it up, it would have been even better. But the general vibe of what they're trying to go for, the mashup of the two worlds, the getting you into the Disney space, the telling story, the action-y RPG, but like light and accessible and fun. The combat here is better. The camera here is better. Some things like that. Overall, this is a better game than the first one. The first one, I was going to say, like, maybe barely deserved it. This one's a solid New Game Plus for me. Not as perfect as Dustin wants to imply, like, but it's a good game. Go check it out.
I don't know if it's a perfect, but definitely better.
Just, yeah, it has some issues still, but less of them.
I think this game is better than Kingdom Hearts in every way. Kingdom Hearts 1. They took what was successful from the first iteration and made it better with, like, even with like quality of life improvements and with the fleshed out universe. And Dustin mentioned that they actually, it feels like they actually listened, which, like, game developers at that time didn't. Because they didn't
game developers at all times.
Some of
game developers
still don't. Yeah, plenty of them still don't.
They still don't. Look at Diablo 4. But like the fact that they acknowledged the flaws with the first one, addressed them, and then continue to make the rest of the game great. I have very fond memories of this game. And past the nostalgia, though, I think this game holds up to be just a straight up fantastic RPG. Without the nostalgia, I think anyone can pick it up and become immersed, appreciate it, especially with the like remix version that's out. This one actually has somewhat of an end game. There's like some grindy things to try to beat. Like I remember trying to grind out the best gear and synthesis items to beat Sephiroth because it was just like impossible, but I finally did, and that's super rewarding. It's just as charming and unique as the first game, but I think they really land the true essence of what they were trying to accomplish in this game. Between this collaboration of this giant company, I love this game, and I think you will too.
That means that Kingdom Hearts 2, the third game in the Kingdom Hearts series, is New Game Plus certified. But what did you think? On our YouTube poll, 57%, pretty low, said yes, worth playing today. 11% said no, go play something else. And 32% have never played it before?
Shocking. That is shocking to me.
I feel like that's on point.
This is a known and beloved game.
And that's a lot of people.
My first time ever playing
You're not a gamer.
But
that's not true.
It was a huge game. It's got a huge fan base.
Minnie Mouse. Many people wrote in, this might be a record. I think we broke a record on Kingdom Hearts as the lengthiest commentary.
Yeah.
Like, people would write books for that. This one, we've got dozens of responses.
Really?
But I don't know if a record was broken. But I will be able to respond to just a few of those. Clint said Kingdom Hearts 2 makes the first game look like a silly, underdeveloped tech demo by comparison.
So that's an exaggeration.
The forms in Kingdom Hearts 2 are its major unique mechanic, and they are so much fun to use. The issues with the system is that all the game's movement tech is locked behind leveling up those forms, but the way to do it is so strange, hard to figure out, and even more strange to properly hash out those levels up. All of the bosses and areas in this game feel so lovingly crafted, and there's a lot less aimless wandering like often happens in Kingdom Hearts 1. I've said it for years, and it remains my stance that this game is easily the best entry in the Kingdom Hearts series to date. I would love to find that this game renewed Dustin's excitement for the series that the first game didn't live up to.
Did it?
That's all right.
Don't.
No, it's great. And it's frustrating because now I've got like 2 games that I want to finish. The last 2 games that we played on this podcast. Yep. But I just know we're about to pull another good game, so I
decided to continue my playthrough. I mean, I've got it up on my TV. Like I'm having a lot of fun, so I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah, it's a fun little. I want to go back to the pacing. I know we're done talking about it, but no world overstays its welcome. I remember in Kingdom Hearts 1, you're staying on each world for too long. You're like, you're just there doing tedious stuff. Here, you're not there long at all. Some would say too short, but you can always come back and the world's evolved or something's changed. Yep. And so I think the pacing here is great. So like what I'm saying is that I can come back and play it in short stints and get a little and do a whole world in an hour and then, and be able to move on. I love that. Staged Link said, the Kingdom Hearts series holds a special place in my gaming history. I remember playing the first one with my best friend in high school one New Year's Eve between rounds of DDR and Too Many Pizza Rolls. I was hooked, and as soon as I got a PS2 of my own, I got a copy. Fast forward 4 or so years to college. As a poor college student, I couldn't afford the new Kingdom Hearts game, but that year, my friends all pooled money and bought me a copy. The vastly improved, faster gameplay and the copious addition of reaction commands made this one leagues better than the first. Looking back now, I will admit there are a few things that may put a few people off of this, mainly the slow opening and the singing level, but overall, this series has stood the test of time. NGP from me.
There's so much content in this game, which was such a big deal back then. I can relate to the scenario they were painting there. But when I actually get my hands on it, it kept me entertained for like years. Like I played it for so much.
Having that singing level, I know it's with the Little Mermaid. I didn't get there. The idea of that again throws me off, and I think it's going to be terrible. But also at this point, I'm like, they're gonna pull it off. Like they're gonna pull it off. I'm gonna enjoy it.
You have to trust.
It's gonna be silly, but I'm gonna enjoy. Like there was a time where Dustin would have thought, and it still sounds insane, that a Final Fantasy-esque character going and putting hands on knees and talking to Pooh in Pooh's world was going to be too silly and childish for me, but it kind of works. I don't know.
You just gotta trust them.
Rustu said Kingdom Hearts 2. It is such a legendary title, played it time and time again with so many vast improvements and overall exceptional storytelling and fun gameplay. It is a must-play if you really like good storytelling and also feel like going on a grand adventure. I have so many wonderful memories of playing through the game and completing it with my brother. NGP from me, hands down.
It's a good one to play with a brother. It's a good game for that.
The story's too in depth for you.
I don't know.
You like picture books?
No, I like less drugs involved in the writing.
New idea. Everybody submit a Kingdom Hearts game for the next Patreon poll and make Kenny have to keep playing this series. That sounds fun.
Cave.
That sounds fun to me.
For this episode and for this week, I actually, at the beginning of the week, watched the first portion of a series retelling of the story, so I could get
How long
up
was
to
the video?
The video is like 6.5 hours, I think, and I watched like the first hour to get through to the point of the game. So
nice.
And then finally, Joey, the producer that submitted this game, said, "It's hard not to love this series. This may be contrary to some, but a year ago, I watched a 3-hour video explaining all the ins and outs of the game and story. After watching that video, I made it a point to begin playing through each of the games in the series. I found myself drawn more and more through characters like Sora, who are so deeply intertwined into characters like Roxas. The combat and overall gameplay in Kingdom Hearts 2 was a much appreciated upgrade while keeping the nostalgia of Disney at the forefront of the game. Not many game series have a deeper story within the story, which is what I appreciate about this game and the series as a whole. I was blown away after several years putting games in the producer pool that my game finally got picked. Couldn't have picked a better game to play over the course of this week. Here is to many more big titles in 2024.
We're also glad that your game got picked. Thanks for submitting it and for being a producer.
I'm pretty sure for years now he's put in like Fable or some iteration of Fable, and this last one he changed it.
It was the first
Fable
time
was
he
cursed.
failed.
Fable was cursed,
and the first time he changed it, it got picked. Yeah,
he got picked.
Speaking of, it's time to set aside Kingdom Hearts 2 and to randomly select from our Retro Master list what game we'll be playing for the next 7 days. Randomizing now. This game came out for the Xbox in 2003.
All right.
It is a hack and slash video game with RPG elements.
Not inherently opposed.
It's the same as this game.
Published by Atari Interactive and developed by the subsidiary Hunts Valley. Wait, is that Ranch?
Hidden Valley.
Oh.
But now we're going to call it Hidden Valley all
If you
week.
mix ketchup and ranch together, that's what you get.
Oh, Hunt's Ketchup. You're right. Okay.
Hunts Valley.
And
gross.
This game is going to be a part of a franchise that we are very familiar with because we are in the middle of our 3-year-old weekly campaign. It's not true. It's just what I wish. The game that we'll be playing for the next 7 days is called Dungeons and Dragons Heroes.
Okay.
Hello?
I mean,
is it time to bring back pork and beans?
I don't mind the idea. I miss pork and beans. I don't mind the idea of a little like RPG character world building. That's fine. The when and on what it came out has me a little concerned, so we'll see.
It's time to create some D&D characters this week. Hey, this is probably the precursor to Baldur's Gate 3. We'll see. Find a copy of Dungeons and Dragons, Heroes, and play it along with us this week.
Or you could, you also have the option not to do that. But here's what
not an option.
Here's what you don't have an option in. It is you must join Discord. We have a Discord, and some people will be talking about this game. I won't personally, but it's discord.gg/newgameplus.
You do have the option to support New Game Plus on patreon.com. Give us your vote for being worth your time and your listening, and we would love it. You'll be joining a large list of producer-level supporters, including Alex, Alias X, Marley, and Antonin Bin, Big Dude, Craig, Dustin's 5 o'clock Shadow, Garlisle, Gimbin, Hallex, Harold, Hey Brother, J. Robert, Jake, Jared, Jordan, Joey, Hey, Justin, Kenny's Beard, Glenn, Knickknack, Corey, Levi, Maxima, Megatroid, Ms. Muso, Not Enough Dog, Riff, Sage and Shane, Shauna, Stephen Fox, Psycho Mantis, Thomas Turtle, Unbedavable, and Zion. Of course, thank you to our director-level supporters as well, who truly go above and beyond. Arlen Yuki, Bro Jim, Super Hypered, The Kentucky Kid, and Siegfried. You guys are the tortilla in our breakfast.
The key to our heart.
The tortilla in our breakfast.
Appropriate.
Hold on.
A good breakfast includes tortillas.
No. Instead of the key to our hearts, thematically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You went with the tortilla to our breakfast.
He went with breakfast, but if you would have said eggs, that's more normal. So you're talking about breakfast
tortilla
tacos?
to our tacos. Like,
those who are watching the episode understand tortilla. I'm just distracted by something in my office. Yeah. And tortillas are a great breakfast food. Absolutely. Breakfast tacos, breakfast burritos. Give me a little huevos. Oh, sure. But yes, please.
Quite uncommon, I'd say, for people not in Texas.
You can find us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. The links are all in our show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Dungeons and Dragons Heroes. Until then, I'm so old.
I can't even with that.
I'm Zemnis.
And this has been New Game Plus.